Okay, Jack, another day, another FPL pod. Game week 1 over. Now we find ourselves in a position where we have to look back and review, cast a light or shine a light on all of our theories, all of our presumptions. How did you do?
Josh, I'm not a happy man, Josh. I'm not a happy man. It's not, I mean, what a crazy week, right? What a crazy game week 1 it was. Unbelievable point scoring, average point 69. That's got to be up there with the highest ever, I think. And yeah, great to have the Prem back, great to have fans back, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. I was really happy for it to be back for about 10 minutes. And then Bruno gets his hat trick. As we know, I'm team Bruno, not team Bru-yes. Disastrous start to the week. And it didn't get much better, Josh. It didn't get much better for old Jackie boy. So yeah, I'll run through it. I got a score of 67 in total, so 2 below the average. Salah captaincy, about the only good thing that came in. But even with the Bruno doing even better than him, that didn't even feel that great. You know, it was just great. Salah got a goal and 2 assists. Great. Bruno just completely did me in. Greenwood got me the 8 points. Tsimikas clean sheet, matched Trent, which I was pleased with. Ings with a last minute consolation goal. Those were good things, but on the whole, really sad. That Mane punt over Bruno really just blew up in my face in a really horrendous way. A hat trick. I mean, it was not good. Was not good. And then the rest of my team didn't do a lot. Bamford, Rafinha did nothing. Mahrez, big disappointment this afternoon. Luke Shaw and Kufal. I mean, defenders, fine, whatever, 1 point each. And Brighton conceded. So that's Sanchez and goal getting me 2 points. And that's all I really want to say about my game week 1 team, how they did. Josh, tell me some good news. How did your team do?
Oh, well, commiserations for yours, Jax.
Thanks, man.
There's a long season.
There you go.
38 game weeks.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm on 96. So
oh, Josh, happy for you.
Thank you. That's what we're there. We're a team. We're on 96, Jack, together. Yeah,
there you go.
Points. There we go.
There you go.
So I think that's an overall at the moment kind of ranking of just under, the 800,000 odds, and that kind of shows you how high the points were this week. How everyone was doing kind of generally in the game. The points
some big
were
scores.
Through the roof.
Big scores flying around, man. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, like you said, I was a Bru-yes, didn't captain him. A lot of people in our mini league chats and stuff, and people generally tweeting about, should have picked Fernandez. And I think, for your own mental health, should I say, the way I rationalize it is, if you asked me before this game week started, out of 100 times, how many times would you pick Salah? How many times would you pick Fernandez? And they were the only 2 on the table for me. I'd pick Salah 95 times out of 100.
Yeah,
and
I think that's fine
with the Salah.
Definitely, if you've got Fernandez and you captain Salah, I mean, you are laughing, really. I mean, the Fernandez, very few people who had Fernandez actually captained him statistically, so that was a relief, really, for me. A small just point of solace. I think if you've got him, just be really happy you've got him. Yeah, but that wasn't the only good news in your team, was it, Joshua?
No, Son. I talked about maybe the sacrificial Son to free up some cash.
I thought you were going to do it, yeah, but you held firm.
I held, yeah. I had a little worry with the Vestergaard transfer to Leicester, thinking, oh no, this bad signs for Amati, who actually, played and got some good points. But it looks like Vestergaard will be coming into that team long term. So I bolted at that a little bit, got a bit worried. So I thought I need to get Amati out because my bench isn't particularly strong. So I basically downgraded the sub keeper because I had Sanchez as my sub keeper. So I downgraded to Foster.
Right, to get a little 0.5 in there.
Money, and then brought in Veltman for that, who didn't get anything. So that's kind of something that
wasn't in the squad. Wasn't in the squad, was it? Was it a COVID thing? It was
not sure.
Like
that. Don't know what the deal is, but from an
lack
FPL
of match
perspective,
fitness, the FPL have updated it as. That's interesting. I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, do we care? No, he got 0 points. Thanks,
yeah.
FPL. But so that's probably something for me a hole to plug for game week 2. But overall, I could keep some. He came in good. I think watching the game, if you're like hanging putting the magnifying glass over Son, what you'd say is he didn't look himself in a couple of early opportunities where he was really indecisive and cut back. But the positive news is Spurs look like they're going to be decent this year, which means hopefully Son has a good platform to kick off.
I mean, what a win. Yeah, what a
Great.
win against City. 10 points against City from Son. You cannot complain, can you? Take that all day, every day from Son there.
Exactly.
Phenomenal result.
And it looks like he's playing through the middle. He's taking the Kane role. So you've got a midfielder who is and pretty much an out-and-out striker for them. So yeah, we'll be holding on to him, see how he does over the next game weeks, but happy to hold with him. And then Antonio, obviously missed pen, but still doing bits apart from that.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the missed pen, I was like, oh, thank you, finally, a good thing. And then to make up for it, he gets another goal and assist. So brilliant. Cheers, Antonio. Yeah, great shout with Antonio. I made the wrong choice in Bamford there. Really good pick. There's a lot of those good strikers. Wilson got a goal as well, didn't he? Dominic Calvert-Lewin got a goal. Feels like they all got a goal except Bamford. Damn it, Bamford.
Leeds were not really at the races, were they?
No, strange one. I only saw the highlights of that game, but yeah, Man United looked very good, didn't they? They mean business.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I think if we try to speak about it purely from a ice in our veins FPL perspective, one game week, that's not a very good statistical, sample to take from.
It's not.
I think looking at, Pogba got 4 assists. His expected assists, I think, was through the roof. In his return, I think his XA was, looking at it now, 0.72.
Yeah, so, it's incredible. Similar to Bruno, expected goals of 0.78, and he got 3 goals. Incredible stuff.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think obviously that's not going to happen every week for United. They were buzzing in as a home fixture, and they rolled out Varane, presented Varane beforehand, so the crowd were buzzing.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about that home advantage this week. I mean, just look at it now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of the 10 games was a home win, which is like a very strong, not the usual mix that you get typically year on year statistically. So those crowds, I mean, as soon as I watched that Arsenal game on the Friday, the Brentford game, I remember they just zooming up into the eyes of the Arsenal players. You could see they would just look shell-shocked, especially the younger ones. They weren't used to having, 17,000 people. And so it was only Brentford, but tens of thousands of people screaming at them. You could just see in their eyes, they just looked flummoxed. They just looked bewildered at what they were, having a year and a half of no crowd. I really think it had a big effect for these home teams. What do you reckon?
Yeah, home advantage is back, baby. Home advantage is back. And I think you're right. When you look at those fixtures, I mean, the Brighton beating Burnley, yeah, that's a bit of a coup for Brighton. But the Liverpool-Norwich one, yeah, Norwich are playing at home, but you'd expect Liverpool to maybe win that as a fixture in itself.
Yeah, of course.
The West Ham-Newcastle one, again, West Ham off of last season. I watched the Newcastle-West Ham game, and Newcastle looked really good in the first half, but I think the quality of West Ham showed in the second. So you'd say that maybe they were quite one-sided fixtures, but there are others, like you said, the Brentford one, you'd expect Arsenal to maybe roll them over, and I think that home advantage is
Watford Villa. I mean, Watford Villa, just to compound my misery, Watford beating Villa, it was very sad, Josh. Very depressed about that one.
He almost came back,
Watford
right?
again. Yeah, I mean, it was too late. The first half, we were just horrendous. But yeah, good to see. Good for Ings to get his goal and things. A great job from Super John McGinn. But Watford again, the home crowd it was that first day of the season plus home crowd, plus home crowds are finally back after a year and a half. Those 3 things really kind of mixed together, I think, to create some real cauldrons in these stadiums. And yeah, I think the away teams just got a bit shell-shocked in a lot of cases, I would say. But there we are. Maybe for FPL, I certainly should have thought that would be the case a bit more. But like you say, you don't pick a team for just game week 1, do you? You pick it till game week 2 when you wildcard. No, you pick it you pick it for a few weeks at least, and you just got to stay grounded, not panic. 67 points is still good in a way. Those kind of things I'm going to have to keep telling myself. Yeah,
Well, let me ask you then, looking at game week 1, and this is not a question about game week 2 specifically, but
sure.
after those performances, are you now looking at some of your players and thinking, I want them out? Are you thinking like, oh, this person, this person, this person going
Yeah,
out in that order? And
I
who are
think
they?
the two. Yeah, sure. So there's two big concerns, I think, and that's Mahrez and Mane. So Mane, I didn't watch the Liverpool game, but looking at his XG and XA and looking at the highlights, he didn't seem to do that much. I think XG of 0.14. You're a Liverpool fan. How did he play? Did you watch the game?
Yeah, I think he played well when you compare him to the Mane of last year. And
Mm,
he did look like he had confidence in his touch, something that was missing from last year. But the negative thing from an FPL point of view is the other attacking players looked much better in terms of potential points. Obviously,
yeah,
Salah, just clinical. Jota,
yeah.
great. I mean, Firmino when he came on as well, they all look really strong. So
Good
you have to
finish.
say 12 million for Mane. I don't think he's maybe
It
worth
was,
that investment.
yeah, it was the big punt, and it was the punt that I always knew if it's not looking great, you could switch to Bruno the next week. And spoiler alert, I do think that's what I'm going to do.
Uh-oh.
But we'll come into that on the next section. The other one is Mahrez. So Mahrez are probably a bigger concern than Mane in a way because he didn't look great today, didn't look great in the Community Shield game. Norwich up next, but could well be benched, couldn't he, Mahrez? He knows the bench well. He could be benched. He could get 10 minutes, he could get 90 minutes, but after not playing very well the two games and those City players starting to come back into the fold, I think I need to be very concerned about Mahrez. Yeah, again, it's another kind of punty, risky choice that didn't pay off for me. 9.5 mil, not exactly one I can just shunt to the bench either. So I think I'll have to be looking at that, yeah, with a close eye. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I think the Mane one was a punt from the perspective of
It's
you
not
just
Bruno.
you
Yeah.
justified it. You went with him over Bruno, and you can see, especially for the opening fixture, why you would have done that, and it could have quite easily turned out differently. But the Mahrez one, I think that was that was quite a safe bet, really. I think there was quite a few people that were looking at Mahrez and maybe went with other players because they were cheaper or maybe a bit safer bets. The Pep Roulette is always a fear, isn't it? And I think they've just got so many attacking players. That was evident at the game today when they bring them off the bench, and they can all play across that front line. And Foden's, I don't know
Yeah.
when Foden's going to come back actually, but if he comes in, that's even more. And Mahrez minutes will drop accordingly, won't they?
They will. And I think it was interesting that he played Grealish for the full game. I think he's really, really trying to blood in Grealish. And obviously they've paid the ridiculous price for him. I know Pep, I think every manager, when it comes to massive, major price tags, feel a bit of pressure to play those players. And I think I can foresee Pep playing Grealish game in, game out, really, until he really, really gets into his fold, or unless he's awful. I didn't think he was that bad today, actually. Some people were joking saying he was terrible, but he did okay. He sort of did Grealish-ish things, but they didn't quite come off for him. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
we'll
not a
see what
City.
happens.
It's not a City firing on all cylinders, is it? And that's
No.
difficult for any player to come into because they're a scalp for any team. So
Yeah, exactly, man.
and Spurs at home as well. That's the stadium was bouncing. But
There you
um,
go. Yeah.
so what about
What about your team, Joshua? First, let me throw the question back at you're firing on all cylinders. Your team, but there are a couple of blankers. Thoughts on them? Any concerns?
Yeah, if you know what, I think the blank players for me, it was Kufa on one, Shaw on one, Rafinha one, Tony on two, and then obviously Martinez in goal didn't get clean sheets. You had two
Yeah.
as
What do you
well.
think of Tony's performance on Friday?
I mean, man of the match performance he got. Obviously, that
Mm,
doesn't mean much for our FPL points perspective, but he is the focal point, and I think he is going to be the person who's double marked. He didn't have a lot of space, and I think his strike partner
yeah.
actually found himself having a lot more space, a lot more availability to run with the ball and without the ball because everyone was getting drawn to Tony. That said, I think Tony put in a great performance. So and Brentford look all right. So I think at 6.5, again, we discussed this in the last pod.
It's great value. Yeah.
I mean, who are you going to replace him with at that price point? It would have been Neil Maupay. He did score, but you're only going to want Maupay now for maybe 3 more fixtures. And it just feels like so like for like. Why would you burn a transfer for that?
I think, yeah, I agree, man. I think you're totally safe with Tony. And they looked the real deal, Brentford. Like, I love the way they play was great. The unorthodox tactics. Like, did you see them when they went up for the corner? It's mental. Did you watch that game?
Yeah, so the throw-ins as well. They were crazy.
The throw-ins are great. Rory Delap's back. Yeah, throw-ins great. Scored from one, and the corners, just putting everyone up for the corner, just completely intimidating. Really interesting team to have in the Premier.
Hungry. So yeah, Tony, it's a hold for me on him, and also Rafinha, Shaw, and Kufal. Maybe because we know what they're capable of from last year, but I think there were glimpses from Kufal, especially later in the game. He whipped a cross in, which Antonio somehow headed onto the post.
Bar. Yeah, I saw that.
Or post or bar. I mean, that would have been an assist for Kufal. They were pinned back a little bit earlier in the game, and I was a bit worried that he wasn't going to get forward, but it was more the Kufal of old or last season later on. So I think safe bet, hold on to him as well. Rafinha, let's just say we'll wait to see what happens with Leeds over the next few game weeks. He's still going to be a good option and still only, quite cheap accordingly. Shaw is probably the one I'm most worried about because maybe it was the fact that the midfield and attack for United was so dominant that he didn't really need to get at the pitch. Him and
that's interesting.
To get up.
Yeah, but I didn't think about that.
I couldn't really see him bombing and overlapping and putting in balls and finding himself in that like central left attacking position as much. But it's only one game, so I don't know what to make of that. But he didn't look like the attacking Shaw that we saw last year. So in a 5.5, you start thinking, who else?
Are there better options? Yeah.
Well, Alonso looked. Well, I didn't only heard the commentary.
You don't want to go there, do you? Though he did look, but he always does when he plays. I think Alonso. But how long's Chilwell going to be out? Really? Like how? Like how? I don't want to touch either of them because it's that really annoying incident where there's two very, very good players, but you can't really pick either of them because you don't know which one's going to start with Chelsea, I think. Yeah,
that is the benefit you get with Shaw. He will start.
Yeah. Let's give Shaw more of a chance, Josh. I think with Rafinha. We've both got them both. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt for week 1.
Good. So yeah, I think generally it's a hold on to most of them. You've got 2 to think about, but it's only one game week.
Yeah. And speaking of another game week, in the next bit, we'll talk about what are the good options from the week just gone that we've got our eyes on, who we're bringing in, and who we're captaining.
Look into the future, a peek into the future.
Yeah, very good.
Right, see you in a second.
Bye-bye.
And we're back into the second part. Now we're going to talk about game week 2. And we're going to start this section by talking about what specifically you're going to do, Jack, because obviously the listeners know about your team. And then we're going to move on to maybe, because they've got different teams, what would you do in a hypothetical world, an ideal world, should we say? But let's start with what are you going to do with your team for game week 2?
Sure. Well, actually, Josh, I'm afraid it's something I've already done to my team because I got back from a long walk today and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this transfer anyway. Let's just do it now. And the off chance there's a price rise for this guy because I've got the exact money. It's Mane out, Fernandes in, Bruno in. Let's lock him in. Let's forget the last week ever happened. Let's pretend it never happened. Get Bruno into your team. He's phenomenal, isn't he? He defies the odds. We talked about his low XG in the last game. He's still got 3 goals. He's averaged something like 10 points a game since he started in the league, fantasy points a game. It's just madness that I never had him in the first place. So that's it. Mane out, Bruno in. There was no Mahrez, like I said, was the other consideration, but at 9.5, it would have been a drop down to maybe a Havertz or somebody. But I just think the Mane to Fernandes, it's just, don't overthink it. It's one of those. Don't overthink it. Get Bruno in. Otherwise, every Man United game, I'm just going to have that horrible feeling. I think I said it in one of the other parts. When you get that feeling of dreading watching a player, that's your gut telling you should probably have him in your team. And that's the feeling I had. As soon as that first Bruno goal went in, I was playing a game of football at the time, and I was like, guys, just don't tell me the updates. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And of course they all did. Bruno goal, Bruno goal, Bruno goal. It was just awful. So yeah, Bruno in, Mane out, done. Do you think I've made the right move?
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna any FPL player for this whole season, if you could give them 2 players to pick for the whole season, set and forget, it'd be Salah, Bruno.
It would, wouldn't it?
And you're right. The reservations that you had, that you explained before, were valid before we saw the United team get on the pitch. Now they're not valid.
Now
you
they're
need
invalid.
Bruno in your team.
You do. Everybody listening, get him in. Hell or high water, get him in. Everyone's Bru-yes now. Exactly, man.
So nice and simple for you, yeah. Locked in, already done.
Yeah, nice and simple. Same formation, same bench players, locked in. Done. I'm staring it now. Happy days. Feeling good about it. Southampton away. Thanks very much.
So you're going to bring him in and captain him?
Well, do we do captains now? Let's just maybe talk about captains after the next bit. We could have a more general captain discussion. What are you thinking about your team, Josh?
Well, I hinted at it in the first section. I need to get rid of Veltman because my bench is quite light. So I've got Veltman, Brownhill, and Obafemi, who are kind of the 3 locked in on the bench. Obafemi obviously not likely to get minutes. So in case there's any squad rotation or injuries, it leaves me very light. So Veltman 4.5, potential options that I'm looking at are, there's a number of Brentford defenders that are coming in at 4.5. They've got Palace next. They looked pretty solid. And then they've got Villa, Brighton, and Wolves. So they've got a few game weeks of maybe getting away with that, and a good price point. Thomas for Leicester also scored 7 points. Leicester, looking pretty decent. And then outside of that, at 4.5, the only other person I'm really looking at is maybe Tanganga, who is playing on the right side of a back 4 currently for Spurs, and he looked good today.
He had a good game today, didn't he? Yeah.
But I don't know if that is just that classic eye test, very small sample. They got a clean sheet against a maybe lackluster City. Ayling would have been in if this was before game week 1, I would have considered Ayling, but with Leeds how they are at the moment, they may find a couple of game weeks to find their feet. So
he did get a lovely goal, to be fair.
Great goal, but that lightning bolt won't strike probably.
Well, it didn't strike at all last season, did it? No goals, no assists. Game week 1, bang, goal.
There we go. So I'm not going to be banking on Ayling's goal scoring points going forward. No. So those are my options. Haven't decided yet, if I'm completely honest. I will stew and wait close to the deadline to see if there's any injury updates from training and stuff like that. I don't need to make my decision this early on.
Very good. Yeah, you're going to do the classic wait and see.
I'll wait for the conferences.
Wait for the conferences. Very good.
Just in case there's any injuries or any news from training, especially literally right up and probably until the deadline. Been burnt too many times making those early shouts.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Yeah, it's a weird one. I think in rare cases you just have to go for pull the trigger if you've got the exact money, you're worried about a price rise. But yeah, generally it's a good thing to wait, for sure.
Good. So we've talked about ourselves, but that's maybe not very helpful for the listeners.
No.
Looking
boring.
Outside of, very boring, too boring. Looking outside of your team, who would you want as a defender, a midfielder, or an attacker if you could have anyone? Players that you've got already or players that you don't have?
Yeah. So looking at the highest scorers of the week so far, we've mentioned them already. Alonso, Chalobah's the second for Chelsea. Another great goal from him. I'd avoid those two personally. I've mentioned it with Alonso Chilwell coming in. Alonso, you don't know how much he's going to play. Chalobah, again, it was a similar to the Ailing one, I think. Absolute screamer. How often is he going to play? It's their avoiders from me. Pereira, the third highest scorer, he is a very interesting player. I think you mentioned Luke Shaw replacements, Josh. If he keeps his fitness, Pereira is a hell of a player for Leicester. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's super attacking, isn't he? I mean, he's kind of almost that Alonso style, but on the right hand side, definitely left as well. But all okay at defending, but an amazingly attacking fullback. So massive potential points. I agree. Yeah. If you've got the funds and you're not going to go short at 5.5, then great option.
Yeah. I mean, Man City have got Norwich next week. I mean, they reckon Stones will probably play. I don't think that's a horrible shout. And yeah, United with Southampton. I think Shaw will come good next week, to be honest. I'd be surprised if Southampton got one against United. And of course, Liverpool, Burnley. We're sticking with Tsimikas. If you don't have him, should you bring him in, do you think?
The situation hasn't really changed. I think if he'd had a terrible game, then maybe there would be concerns that Milner might be dragged in as an emergency left back. But there isn't any senior left back who can really fit in to replace Tsimikas. What I'd say is he had an up and down game. There were periods he fizzled out towards the end, ran out of energy a little bit, but there were parts where he lost possession, dawdling on the ball. He got his pocket picked when he was like the furthest defender back, just basically looking for a pass. But these are things I think it's coming with a player who doesn't have a lot of experience being in like the first team for them. Definitely nothing to be worried about him being dropped, I don't think. So at 4 million, again, if you're looking to bring in a defender, I don't know why you wouldn't bring him in. He's locked in for quite a few game weeks.
Lovely. Fully agree. Good one to end on with defenders. What about midfielders? We've mentioned the obvious, Fernando Salah, get him in your teams. But I think there's more interesting ones to talk about. What do you think of Pogba? Casual 4 assists.
Well, I saw this stat, and someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but he got 3 assists for the whole of last season. Is that right?
Yeah.
And 3 assists the season before, or something like that. So he's already surpassed that in one game. I mean, I think what we'll say is, yes, he has the ability, but there's a reason why he's priced at 7.5. And that's because his output of FPL points itself is not going to be as high as, especially in that team, kind of Bruno or maybe even Greenwood. Greenwood looked very good as a finisher, and it looks like he's going to play right up top. So as a midfielder, you're going to get good value for money there. But
he's such a weird one, Pogba, isn't he? Because I think there's just always that. I just always feel with him that he's just going to miss a run of games for some weird political reason at United. He's never been fully settled there, has he? Unbelievable player on his day, but you feel like if he was fully committed to the club or didn't have that weird feeling, that he'd be a hell of a 7.5 option, I think.
The only risk is of those midfielders, and Bruno's obviously priced a lot higher than him, but Pogba runs the risk of being the assist of the assister so much. Like he'll bang those shots in, those kind of Hollywood goals, but that's because he's that far back a lot of the time, isn't it? He's sat kind of 30 yards out or whatever, or coming onto the ball at 30, 35 yards. There's a reason he's out there. That's because he plays that much deeper. Whereas people like Bruno are getting into the box and they're having their shots. And actually, Pogba had an opportunity passed to him in the box, didn't he, on his left foot before their goals were scored, and he missed his. So I think I wouldn't jump on the Pogba train quite yet. If he does it like next couple of game weeks and looks like he's really hit some form, then it might be like a Gundogan thing from last year where he's just on fire. But I wouldn't go for him at the moment.
Yeah, that's fair, I think.
If you own him, hold, of course, but don't.
Yeah, it's a hold, not a sell, but it's not a buy. It's one of those, isn't it?
Benny Rama.
Benny boy.
Jack,
Josh.
He was your golden boy.
Don't
what happened?
say it. Yeah, so he was in my bus team, wasn't he? Friday, I just thought it was between him. I think I had him, Gundogan, and Trent still. And then I got rid of Trent because I thought Simicast would match his points, which he has so far, fingers crossed. But that then allowed me to upgrade, quote unquote, Benrahma to Mahrez. And I went with Greenwood over Gundogan. Thankfully, that was a good shout. But yeah, Benrahma, I mean, he didn't, yeah, I mean, he got the goal. I mean, you watched the game actually in full, Josh. What did you think of them?
They did not look great in the first part of the game. And maybe this is coming back to that home advantage, but Newcastle really pinned them back, and Cresswell and Soufal couldn't really get up the pitch and apply the pressure from all angles. In many situations, it looked like the front four were like Fornals, Benrahma, Antonio. They were all kind of attacking just as a four and not really getting much support. Second half, completely different story. West Ham applied the pressure, and I think Benrahma then was definitely filling that kind of Jailings role from last year and was really getting.
That's where we thought he might play. Yeah,
but he is, as you said, he's getting forward. If he continues to play in this position, he's getting right into those dangerous situations and playing right with Antonio. And actually, Antonio found himself on the left quite a lot, and letting the other kind of players go through the middle. So, yeah, it's, again, only one game, but at 6 mil for a good team like West Ham, they could be okay. The only other thing I was going to ask you about is Souček. So he had an XG of 0.8, got his goal. Apart from the goal, he did have some other chances.
He's a funny one, isn't he?
Dare we dream again?
I dare not dream about Souček because he's great. Don't get me wrong. I'd love him at Villa. I think he's a brilliant player. I think last year he had a very hot period, didn't he? Maybe the year before last, and they were super cheap. Everyone got on him, and rightly so. And then last year he didn't do so much, did he? He was very much playing his position really of the deeper midfielder. At 6 million, I think a Benrahma is a no-brainer. I'd go Benrahma over him.
Souček.
Yeah, I mean that's my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just because he was, again, to use the phrase, golden boy for a lot of people last year. Of course, his name's going to be thrown about again, but looking at the way they play, Benrahma's going to be involved in a lot more attacking plays than Souček. And Souček, of course, massive from set pieces, and with Cresswell's left foot, that is a big option. But yeah, Benrahma's definitely more attacking. So
the one to go for, yeah. At the same price, I think that rules out Souček.
One final question from me to you for midfielders.
Go on, yeah, sure.
And I'm sorry to bring this up, but
Sarr. So Sarr ran. You may have heard, but Target got subbed at half time because Sarr basically destroyed him on several occasions. He targeted him, didn't say sorry. He targeted him, and he obviously got the goal. He got a very lucky goal, I would say. Very, very lucky bounce off Mings to just loop over Martinez. Sarr, but he is very good. He is very, very good. I would, for me though, with Watford, it is a wait and see still with all their players. Just let's see. They had that home crowd bounce. Villa looked a lot better in the second half, and Watford were a lot quieter, including Sarr. So I do just wonder if that first half they were just really buoyed by the adrenaline of the crowd that we're back in the Premier League, crowd are back, blah 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 blah. It's a wait and see with Sarr. Wouldn't bring him in just yet.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't watch that game, so I wanted your opinion.
Yeah, that would be that for me. And then forwards. So you've obviously got Antonio, Josh. I think he's a brilliant pick even now. I think he's if I didn't have to bring Bruno in, I'd be looking at him over Bamford. Fantastic pick. What do you think of Richarlison? So the golden Olympic boy's back. People weren't sure he would start. He did start. He's yet another 7.5 striker who scored. What do you think of him and Calvert-Lewin? Let's lump them together.
Yeah, I mean, we knew they were on a lot of short lists or long lists for people's teams for Game Week 1, weren't they? Looking at Everton's fixtures, and because of what they've given us in previous seasons, his quality's known. Calvert-Lewin, maybe his quality is less so known compared to Richarlison. But I think now that we've seen them and think that Everton are going to show up maybe this season, you've got to look at them. And I think it's 7.5 and 8 for Calvert-Lewin. I think they're both decent options. I don't know who I'd pick between the two long term. I don't think there's much between them, to be honest. Richarlison is a bit of a maverick, isn't he? That he will destroy a team one game and then
It's hot
be
and
a little
cold.
bit missing the next.
I just think they neither of them have really appealed to me, and I don't know if that's just a bias that I have, or it's an Everton thing, or it's I mean, DCL, he had an XG of 1 and he got one. He got the one goal. I mean, that header was so point blank. I think that just came from that, didn't it? But yeah, I don't know what it is. I know DCL was a changed man last year. I just still in my head is the years and years of very, very below average striker play from him that I just can't seem to shake. You know what I mean? He was terrible for years, right? I thought.
Yeah, and at 8, you're comparing him directly to a good bracket of other strikers. Richarlison, you've mentioned, Antonio as well, and Ings and Bamford. Maybe not yet, but will possibly come into contention later on. So you have options, and if there's any doubt, then maybe you put him a little bit further down the list, and you just keep an eye on him for the next couple of game weeks. But I know where you're coming from. We're waiting to see if he finds that electric form from last year.
Yeah,
we can react to that. We don't have to get him in and hope, right? We've got other people that we can be a bit more confident in. But bottom line is their fixtures are great for a long time. Leeds, Brighton, Burnley, Villa, Northampton.
That's true. That is very true. I mean, I'm still weirdly going on that bit of research we did for one of the summer podcasts for just kind of ignore fixtures for attacking players but really look at it for defenders. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this season generally. But if you're right, if you are the kind of manager that does lean on fixtures more for any type of player, then it's looking good. Definitely looking good for them.
Great. And does one game week constitute form? I mean,
well, great question. Let's see now the tables it'll be fascinating to see next week. Now the home teams are away teams and the away teams are home teams, what that looks like, I think. And whether the same bump will be given to the teams that just played away. Like, it will be a very, very interesting comparison. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good. So the final question I have in this segment for Game Week 2 is captaincy then.
Sure thing.
Who are you captaining yourself, and who would you captain outside your team for anyone you don't have?
Well, now I think the
same answer.
It's the same answer, Josh, and it's Mo Salah again for me. Home now. He's shown he can do it away. He's coming home. They've got Burnley. And he was just scintillating, Salah, wasn't he, in the game? Brilliantly taken goal, whacking in the assist. He had a great volley off a Mane cross, didn't he, early on? Just deadly with that left peg, isn't he? Looks hungry, looks fresh. If you've got Bruno, if you like the look of Bruno's hat trick, they've got Southampton away. He's probably going to return. He's in my team now. I hope he does. He's my vice captain. So I can't look beyond them two. I mean, Man City, you've got Norwich. If you've got a good inkling, if you think you know who's going to play for Norwich, if Mahrez had banged today, I might be tempted with him. But I just think a disappointing performance from them today, I wouldn't go near. I don't have the husper to go near a City player for a captaincy. So those are my thoughts. What about you, man?
Agree on all accounts. I don't think anyone's got the chutzpah
Salah time
to try and mix it with any predicting who City may have against Norwich. That looks like the standout David and Goliath fixture there that you might want to zero on a captain, but there's no obvious choice there. So we go to the next two biggest, and the Mo and Bruno. And you've already pointed out Burnley, Southampton both got beat in the first game week. They don't look convincing. Maybe Mo because of the home fixture, if you're looking for anything between it. But if I'm honest, there's nothing between them, really.
I don't know. I think Mo's still. I know Bruno got the hat trick, but Mo's just still a better captaincy choice than Bruno. I think, just in generally, everything else aside, I think he's just shown. Although here I am again slating Bruno, and I just shouldn't because he's just proven me wrong time and time again. So yeah, they're both great. They're both neither are a bad pick at all, are they? They one of those two is the correct pick of captaincy, I think, this week.
Flip a coin.
Flip it. Yeah.
Excellent. So there's your game week 2 done, segment 2, and now we're gonna take another little break, and then we're going to introduce something which is going to be a theme through all of our sessions, all of our episodes.
Oh yes,
and
indeed.
I'll let you introduce that, but tune in a couple of seconds for a little surprise. And we're back. I'm sure everyone's waiting with bated breath. Jack, what's the surprise? Come on,
Josh. Okay, well, big reveal, big surprise is it's our kind of unique feature, this podcast that we're going to run with, and it's called the catchy title of Algorithm Teams. Okay,
say it again.
Algorithm Teams. So what we've done is we've got two friends, because I know you're not allowed to have multiple teams. So two of our friends have given us their accounts, and they're allowing us to run two teams that will be picked each week based on a certain algorithm or a certain set of rules, if you like, that we're putting together. And so the experiment will run throughout the season of seeing how these teams do against the average and against us and generally. And we'll try and discern some learnings, some information based on these algorithms that we can hopefully apply to our own managed teams, Josh.
Great. So that's useful feedback for all the listeners.
Yes, indeed.
So what are you zeroing in? What are we zeroing in on?
Well, Josh, as I said, two teams. The first team I've called the XG11. Okay, so this will be a team purely picked based on XG. So what I've done is I've put together the team initially for game week 1 that had the highest possible XG that I could muster up. So that isn't necessarily the 15 players with the highest XG, because that would be far too expensive for a team. So I had to make concessions here and there. But what I think I've put together is the highest possible feasible team based on XG. And then going forward, the rule for this team will be the player that got the highest XG for that game week. Oh, well, no, the player with the highest XG through the whole league that this team doesn't own will get subbed in for the player, will get transferred in, I should say, for the player that's currently in the team with the lowest XG, if that makes sense. So running through the team, so I'll demonstrate what will happen this week, if you like, to kind of illustrate that. So the team that was picked with the highest XG, can you guess the goalie, Josh? The only goalie with any XG last year.
Alisson.
Correct, Alisson. He had 0.18 XG, so he was in.
Ledge.
The defense was interesting. So we've got Konsa of Villa, Seiss, and Zuma. Kurt Zuma is in the team as well.
Zuma.
So Zumi didn't play. So Zuma had great XG last year. He didn't play, so Tsimikas came in for him. That was like the logical switch to save money elsewhere to get higher XG players in. So the defense was Konsa, Seiss, and Tsimikas. The midfield, of course, Salah and Fernandez, two of the highest XG of last season. And then we've got Yaman Souček, Josh, we've already mentioned. He had some great XG last year. And El Ghazi of Aston Villa, surprisingly high XG, did bang in a few goals. So I was surprised there. Up front, we're playing a 3-4-3. So up front was Jamie Vardy. Very high XG again. Morpay, very low scorer, but high XG last year. Hate the guy, but fair play, scored this week. And my friend Patrick Bamford, who not only let me down, he let the XG11 down as well. Now, slight issue, did forget to set the captain, so it defaulted to Jamie Vardy. Bit annoying as it would have been Salah, but c'est la vie, Vardy still scored. So this points total would have been a bit higher, really, if anything. But it came in, the XG11, Josh, this week, with a very respectable 79 points. So 10 above the average. Go on the algorithm. Beat me. Thanks, algorithm. Beat my team. So the XG11 is doing pretty well so far. Now, transfers for the XG11. Josh, Do you know / can you guess who had the highest XG this game week of all players? If you
Oh,
had to guess.
XG, who
Don't
had a lot of
cheat. Yeah,
chances.
don't cheat.
Oh, Antonio.
You are bang on. Antonio, 1.51
Great
XG
guess.
and an incredible 0.46 XA. So he had the highest XG and XA,
Missed
expected
the
goal,
penalty, though,
expected
didn't he?
assist. He did miss the pen, to be fair, but still a 1.51 is huge. So Antonio is going to come in. And sadly for the player, so that means the rules say he needs to come in for the player that's possible to transfer him out with the lowest XG. And sadly for Mr. Bamford, I'm afraid
Oh, Patrick.
that's you, Patrick. That is you. I'm just going to see if I can find Patrick's XG. But I know I did look at it earlier. I know for a fact it was much lower than Vardy's and Morpay's. Looking down the list now, I can't even see you, Patrick. I can't even see it. The fact that you're not on the top 6 pages of Understat, I think says it all, Patrick. So you're going. I'm not even going to say what it was.
It was bad.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good. So Patrick, you're out. I'm bringing in. I'm doing this sub live on air, Josh. This is a live transfer. It's exciting.
This is podcasting.
Oh, that was close. Nearly did it on my own team. Very, very would have been bad. Sign out and sign to my friends, who's very kindly given me access to his
Thank you, friend.
account. Now then, you know what? I could do this later, can't I? Let's move on. Let's move on to the second algorithm team.
L2.
So the second algorithm team is the differentials. Differential United, we've called them. So the rule, there's only one rule of this team. Every player that gets transferred in has to be under 5% owned. So at the start of the picking a team, I had to go by players that were under 5% owned only. So as soon as a player went over that, I couldn't pick them for this game week. So, and I went with the best, my gut feeling and the previous score, as if I was picking my own team, but with that rule applied. So in goal was our friend Meslier from Leeds.
Good.
You got Aarons from Norwich, highly rated. The star of the week, Alonso, 15 points. Thank you very much. 3.7% owned. Matty Lowton, 2.6% owned. Burnley, reliable. Sadio Mane, the captain, 4.3% owned. Again, only came in with the 3 points. Pepe at Arsenal. I was surprised he was under 5% because quite a few people went for him. But yeah, only 3% owned. Jared Bowen, kind of a bit the forgotten man at West Ham amongst FPL managers with the Benrahma love. 1.6% owned. Raheem the Dream, Sterling, 3.2% owned. So he came in.
Even after the Euros.
Yeah, it's a shame. Jimenez up front. We got the 3 up front. We got Raul Jimenez. He was 3.6% as well. Timo Werner, 4.9%. So just on the cusp.
Timo.
And our favourite, Josh, ASM St. Maximin, 4.8% owned.
Love
he comes in to make the 3. And then we've got a bench, still a bit of money to go. So we've got, the goalie, we've got the Leeds backup goalie, just to back up Meslier, Claesson. We've got Dele Alli, 1.4% owned.
Good pick.
Veltman, your man Veltman, Josh, is now crocked, 3.7% owned. And then finally, Regulon with rounding off the bench with 3.1% owned. So how did they do? It's not very well, I'm sorry to say. Only a meager 40 points for the differentials. So is there a reason they're not picked very much? Maybe so. But throughout the season, we will find out if going differential helps. So again, the rule will be the highest scoring player of the game so far in terms of FPL points will be brought in that's under 5% owned. So whichever the highest under 5% owned player will be brought in each week effectively. And I do believe that is a Brentford player.
Pinnock?
It could be Pinnock or it could be Canos.
Good point.
So Canos got 11 points.
Well, they both got 11 points.
Pinnacle also got 11 points. So there, I think I go for the least owned, so the most differential.
Nice.
So Pinnock's 1.9, Canos 1.5. We have a winner. We have a winner. So actually, do I have the money? I do. So our boy Brownhill is going to get the boot.
He's gone.
He's gone. Brownhill gets the boot for a good friend.
Sergi Canos.
Wait a minute. I'm in the XG11 now. You know what? I could do. Let's not do the transfers live on air, Josh. Is my learning point from our first pod.
We're learning.
We'll handle this later. We're learning. So there you go. So that's what the algorithms are going to do. So each week we'll update you with how the algorithms are getting on, their team value, their points, which players we've brought in and which are doing well. And we'll see how well XG can translate to FPL points and how cool you can make a differential team and how they can fare week by week as well. So that's the end of that.
Amazing. I know I'm going to be watching that XG team, especially.
Indeed, I'm very interested in the XG team as well, Josh, I have to say. And a good start for them. A very good start for them. So
let's see how they get on in game week 2, and then we can judge them properly. Totally. If they beat us throughout the season, it's going to be wounding.
It is going to be, but a great lesson for next season, which is the whole point.
Great.
Very good.
So that's everything. Game week 1 done. Little look on game week 2. We've got the algorithm teams. Tune in again after game week 2, and we'll do it all again.
Very good. Thanks all. Cheers, Josh.
Take care. See you soon.